Hey guys, it's Mr. Calderon with Queen My Pawn, and I'm going to talk about an anti-Sicilian weapon. Yes, you heard it right. You heard it here first. We're going to talk about a weapon that you're going to use when someone plays c5 against your e4. And when you play this, and because they think, oh, I'm going to get an open Sicilian, I'm going to destroy him with tactics. Well, you're going to come puzzle them because you're not going to submit to what their expectations are. And you don't get bad positions out of this. In fact, every time I play this, I get a really good position. There's just some themes that you want to be aware of. So let's go ahead and start it off, okay? So here's the position, and what's happening is that we have a game, Howell against Shaw in Edinburgh 2003. So he plays c5, knight f3, knight c6. And look, when someone plays d6 against me, I actually have no problem just playing d4. That's fine with me. But when someone plays knight c6, I don't want to end up in a Sveshnikov 4 knights or some other line that I'm not prepared to face. Okay, because the Sveshnikov has so many variations. So instead of that, why don't I just play bishop b5? It's a natural developing move, and you're preparing a castle, and it also influences the center because when you capture the knight, the center is influenced. So this is similar to the Ruy Lopez, except that the pawn's not on e5. Now, the game continued g6, and he took with bishop takes d6, not even being forced to take. The reason why is because White's going to get a close position out of this, and he doesn't want the knight going to d4 for some reason or another. So this is definitely playable, and you're gonna stun your opponents. They're gonna be like, what, why is he doing that? Like, wow, is he even good at chess? Like, does he even know how to play chess? But you're gonna basically stun them as a sleeper, and a sleeper is someone that looks like they don't know what they're doing. They look like total potsters, and then all of a sudden the other guy's getting checkmated. So bishop takes c6, d takes c6, d3. So bishop g7, h3 to prevent bishop g4. You could have done bishop g4 here, but h3 and then queen takes f3, and or just knight b2. It would have been a normal position, but if h3 can be prevented, then fine. In fact, you can probably play h3 here, but you could play c4 as well. So d3 was played to prevent c4. Anyways, bishop g7, h3, knight f6. Another alternative is e5, but we're not going to discuss that in this video. Knight f6, knight c3, castles. So far, everyone's bringing out their pieces to what appears to be an open position. But actually, this knight is not going to participate to control d5 because look, there's no possibility of a d5 break by the black side. So it's an illusion that White's creating. Bishop e3 to attack the c5 pawn, but it has a deeper meaning. b6, queen d2, and we're going to play bishop h6, and it's going to become evident why. Most of you are probably saying, oh my gosh, why would I spend so much tempo to do that? Like, that's 3 moves, and like, he's developing. Like, come on, man. Well, actually, there's a purpose for this, and that's exactly why you're going to blow your opponents away with this. So he plays e5, and now bishop h6. Well, actually, he castles first. And after queen d6, now bishop h6. By the way, in this position, you cannot take the pawn because if you do, here's the point. The bishop becomes super active after capturing the hanging knight. And when you capture back on e4, they capture back and the bishop's active. They have the bishop here in an open position. You don't want that. So here's the point. After you castle, queen d6, bishop h6. It will cost 3 tempi, which was bishop e3, queen d2, and bishop h6 to exchange the black inactive bishop. So you might be saying, isn't that like not good because you spent 3 tempo? Well, you gotta ask yourself, is the position open or closed? And obviously it's closed. There is a semi-open file, but that's pretty much it, and there's no way to actually penetrate that semi-open file. So you could say that it's closed. In closed positions, it's better to maneuver and strategize than to attack with tactics, because there are no tactics. Nothing can be attacked easily. Instead, you have to prepare your position to be opened and favorably opened so that you can start attacking without any problems. I talk about that in my video that is uploaded, and it's called Playing in Closed Positions. I uploaded it, and you can find it there. So white wants to push f2 to f4 eventually, but the problem is that after this, the capture e takes f4, the bishop becomes active. So we want to get rid of this bishop on g7. Second of all, the bishop is a strong defender of the king side. Without it, there are gaps in the position, dark square gaps. It's also defending e5. Oops, sorry about that. So without that bishop, we're gonna have an easier time to attack. We need to get rid of g7 and e5, and after that, our kingside attack is gonna be kaboom. So knight h5, and now knight to h2. A knight on the rim is only as dim as the player who put it there. But remember, I just said this was a closed position, so you can actually move knights to the rim because the center is immobile and it's not going to change at all. So there's no need to overprotect the center because the center is not going to change at all. So maneuvering takes precedence over staying near the center. Now we have the bishop taken care of. We're going to exchange the bishop, and so we're going to play f2 to f4. So bishop e6, and now knight to e2. So this is a good move because we're maneuvering the knights before we open up the position. Remember that knights are slow pieces, and we need to maneuver them to the right positions. In this case, the king side, because we're getting ready for a king side attack. f6, and now white should do what? So pause the video and try to find out for yourself. White should play b3 to prevent c4. In the game, knight g4 was played, which gave black the chance to play c4 and open up the position some more, and basically make a weak point d3 for white. So the base of the pawn chain would have been d3 instead of c2 as it currently is. So the game proceeded. Bishop takes g4, bishop takes g7, knight takes g7, not bishop takes e2, and then bishop takes f8, attacking the queen and winning the exchange. H takes g4, and now knight to e6, the dubious move. Better was c4 to weaken white's position and make this the new attackable point. So knight to e6, rook a d1. So now c4 isn't a threat. King g7, g3. Now this is starting to look more like a Ruy Lopez, like a game that Fischer would play. And Fischer liked to play these types of variations. I think one of the games is Fischer's against Korchnoi, where he played, or Fischer versus, I don't remember who else. I gotta reread the book. But he would constantly make sure that he had this pawn structure right here. The king can go to g2 and rook to h1. The difference now is that in the Ruy Lopez, black can play d5, d7, d5, or d6, d5, but in this position he can't. So rook to h8, which is a mistake because this leaves f6 vulnerable, as we'll see. Instead, rook a d8 was more interesting because you're threatening c4, right? And white didn't catch that during the game, so that could have been interesting. G3, rook H8, and now with the rook gone from the middle of the board, white is in a perfect position to attack. F4, H5, G5. The pawns are rolling downfield. So F takes G5, and now F5. So a pawn that cannot be blocked is dangerous. This pawn cannot be blocked. So knight to d4, knight takes c4, queen takes c4, king g2, just a little check, who cares? Then queen to d8, rook f2. Now we're gonna double up the rooks and prepare to open this file, and we're getting in a better position to attack now. So rook f8, returning to the correct position, but also an admission of defeat since the rook is going back and forth, which is what a beginner would do. Rook df1, a5, which is so weird. Like, why are you playing that, dude? We're playing on the king side. Like, playing on the other side of the board when white's loaded up on the king side is a bit strange. And so the game went f6, rook king h6, g4, h4, rook f3 to go here and then there, to obviously because the pawn is pinned, and then rook to a7. If queen to d7, try to find the best move. The best move in this position is rook to g3. Rook to g3. Obviously he can't take it, but if he tries to escape, then you do queen takes g5, and it's gonna be checkmate. So let me just delete that there, and then rook to a7, rook to h1, rook takes f6, and now rook takes h4, king to g7, queen takes g5, and wins. So basically the rook is pinned and it's lost, or black gets mated after rook a f7. So that was the game Howell Shaw, Edinburgh 2003. That was the anti-Sicilian weapon that I went over, and I will put it up on YouTube now. And make sure to like that video and subscribe to my channel as well by clicking the red button on my channel, Queen My Pawn. And I'll see you on the next one.